So, our first news story for today, sadly, is not a good one. It's actually a pretty sad one, and it's a follow up to a news story that we just talked about a week or two ago. If you remember, I was talking about WB Games and how at one point WB Games was at the top of the world, releasing giant hits like the Batman Arkham trilogy, the Shadow of Lord of the Rings themed games, among other very popular hits. And then all of a sudden, they kind of floundered and failed and tripped and fell on their own face, right? Um, the last Shadow of game having that really awful reset that forced you to either pay for accelerated progress or doing a bunch of grinding. Um, the Rocksteady Games group, instead of making another awesome narrative-based game, making a team-based shooter in Suicide Squad that obviously was supposed to be games as a service and no one cared about. Um, Multiple delayed and failed projects, left, right, up, and down. And for every Harry Potter's, success like Hogwarts Legacy, then there's a flop like the Quidditch game. And we found out really the primary reason for it was the leader at the time. The guy who was in charge of games was not a gamer. He knew nothing about games. He was a complete asshole who no one liked. They would give him feedback. He would ignore it and act like more like a businessman than know anything about the games industry. He had them chasing trends. He had them wasting time and money. And by the time that basically he decided to step down or they removed him or whatever the situation was, he had run the company into the ground. Well, one of the companies that we were talking about during that time period was a company called Monolith Games, who previous had made tons of great games and or interesting games, but then was working on a Wonder Woman game. And this Wonder Woman game went into development hell. They started making this game using the Nemesis engine from the Shadow of games. And it was supposed to combine, elements from like the Batman games with this Nemesis engine. It was going to be a big epic Wonder Woman game. They talked about it. No exaggeration. I'm not kidding you. Over $100 million was invested into the Wonder Woman game. Here we are in 2025. There's nothing to show for it. And the guy who was in charge of WB Games stepped down in January. And now the entire company is like a big question mark. What's going to happen with WB Games? Well, sadly, folks, today we have our first answer. Help if I press the button. Monolith Studios, or I should say Monolith Productions, is being closed. In addition, Player First Games, the makers of Multiverses, which also has announced it is no longer going to be in development and will shut down in a few months, and WB San Diego are all closing. All the employees are being laid off and all their projects are canceled, meaning, yes, the $100 million plus Wonder Woman game is now completely canceled. For those who don't know, Monolith has been around for quite a long time. This user, Moro NL, actually posting up a huge collection of Monolith games from over the years. No One Lives Forever, Alien vs. Predator series, Shogo, Contract Jack, Tron, when they made that Tron 2.0 game tie-in. Condemned. Did you know that they made the Condemned Criminal Origins and Condemned Bloodshot, Condemned 2 games? The Fear series. Yeah, Monolith Games actually made Fear. And Fear 1 and 2 were actually really good games, for the record. Okay? So it's pretty sad. All these things that they worked on and made over the years, and, they no longer exist. They're gone, right? For what? Was it their fault that they started working on a Wonder Woman game that was chasing trends that the stupid CEO, or I should say the president of Warner Brothers Games, was telling them to do all these awful, stupid things, right? Then after making a crazy amount of progress on the game using the Nemesis system, we're told to scrap it and start over, which I'm sure they weren't very happy with. When you put that much work into something creative, and then you're told your work's not good enough, start from scratch. So, pretty sad. And, I mean, at this point, you got to wonder, is this going to continue? Will this trend continue? Because there's been a lot of studios who recently have been in this rut where they're not really making the games they used to make, and the games that they're making are flopping. What about BioWare, right? With the recent Dragon Age Veilguard, which flopped huge. Sales way lower than what they were expecting or what they were hoping for, right? We got, dude, just in a month, March 20th, we've got Assassin's Creed Shadows that looks like it's facing exactly the same situation. So, are we at the precipice of a cliff where game development is about to jump off and a lot of people are about to lose their jobs? I think so. And that's not a good thing. If anything, I think this is a result of a games industry that became overbloated, overconfident, and decided to go along with whatever it wanted to do rather than listening to trends, to the economy, to what gamers want. You can't just decide to make whatever you want and pump it out and expect people are going to buy it anymore because things are different. We had COVID, we had inflation, right? This is not 10, 15 years ago where every game gets super hyped and sells a ridiculous amount of money just because it came out of a major game studio. Today, gamers are a lot more skeptical. Not only do you have the mainstream reviewers that are in a lot of cases overinflating review scores, but now you've got the skeptical gamer, the people who are looking to their most trusted streamer or YouTuber or social media person, influencer, right? To give them their opinion first. And a lot of people are just slamming games left and right. I mean, take a look at Avowed, okay? Let's be honest about Avowed. Avowed does have some issues, okay? But is Avowed an awful game? Well, so far, I'm 7, 8 hours in. I haven't seen a single thing awful about it. All right. To me, Avowed is a passable game. And I feel like if it was 10 years ago, Avowed would have been a game that would have sold like gangbusters and it would have made ridiculous amounts of money. But because it's 2025 and people are way more skeptical and people are way more reserved with the dollars that they spend, you got things like Game Pass now. A game like Avowed gets destroyed, gets ripped apart, dissected. Look, none of the NPCs can be injured. They're all invincible. There's no real environmental effects in the game. Look, the choices don't matter. 10 years ago, no one would give a shit. They'd be like, oh, what a great game. But now things are different, okay? So now these game studios are having a very rude awakening, right? You were chasing trends. You were trying to jump in on the popularity of things you did in the past or what other studios were doing, and it's not working anymore. And now you're getting giant studios like WB Games closing down not one, not two, but 3 different game studios in a day. Some of the comments are quite interesting. For example, here's one. So they bought the heroes behind Shadow of Mordor and War. They patented the Nemesis system so no one else can use it. They shove it into a slop superhero game. Then they shut it down anyway. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Layoffs are just not slowing down in gaming, right? The mismanagement at WB needs to be studied. Yes, it does. We need to study that CEO who we looked at just a week or two ago. The case of how they put him into a position of power despite the fact he knew nothing at all about video games. All he did was trend chase for a decade. He ran the company into the ground, and now he's gone and he's fine. He's completely protected. He will have no repercussions for all of his horrible decisions. He lands on his golden fucking parachute. He's good. What kind of a situation do we have here where people can destroy a company, ruin everything for people, all these people losing their jobs because of the actions of a jackass, but the jackass is okay and they're the ones who suffer for it? Does it make any sense? No, it doesn't. But that's our industry. Does it make any fucking sense?